Hey everyone, this is Michael again, and welcome to the Survivor Series WarGames review. Survivor Series WarGames was from the Allstate Arena in Rosemont, Illinois, in Chicago, and the show just ended, and the show was decent in my opinion. We had two surprise returns, one being a guy who left another company and came back to WWE, which I will get to, but it was obviously predictable. We all knew and guessed that this guy was going to return, but overall, we had 5 matches on the show. We had the Women's Survivor Series WarGames match with Bianca Belair, Shotzi, Charlotte Flair, and Becky Lynch versus Damage Control. Io Sky, Bayley, Kairi Sane, and Asuka. We also had the Intercontinental Championship on the line where Gunther defended the title against The Miz. We had Santos Escobar versus Dragon Lee. The Women's World Championship was on the line where Rhea Ripley defended the title against Zoey Stark. And the main event, we had the Men's WarGames match where it was Sami Zayn, Jey Uso, Seth Rollins, Cody Rhodes, and the mystery 5th member. And they ended up taking on the Judgment Day. But overall, Survivor Series WarGames, it was a decent show. I'll admit, the winners of the matches were predictable, but still, the show was decent, and I enjoyed it. But anyways, let's jump right into the review. Survivor Series WarGames opened up with the Women's WarGames match. Bianca Belair, Shotzi, Charlotte Flair, and Becky Lynch versus Damage Control, Io Sky, Bayley, Kairi Sane, and Asuka. And I enjoyed this match, in my opinion. Even though there were some botches here and there, I thought the woman did a pretty decent job here in WarGames. So the match started off with Becky Lynch and Bayley. So we had Bianca Belair, Shotzi, Charlotte Flair, Io Sky, Kairi Sane, and Asuka were in their cages, for now at this point in the match. The bell ended up ringing, and forgot to mention this match was sponsored by Ruffles. So we had Ruffles sponsoring tonight, and later on, Slim Jim, which I'll get to. So the bell ended up ringing. We had Becky taking it to Bayley. Becky ended up bouncing Bayley off the turnbuckles and into the cage wall. Bayley ended up blocking a shot into the turnbuckle, and she bounced Becky's face off the turnbuckle. Bayley then punched Becky down, started taunting the crowd. Bayley ended up hitting the ropes, but Becky ended up following Bayley, and Becky ended up hitting the shoulder tackle. Becky then charged Bayley into the corner, but Bayley ended up putting Becky on the apron. Becky ended up knocking Bayley back. She ended up going up the ropes, but Bayley ended up cutting Becky off. Becky then ended up fighting Bayley down to the canvas and jumped over Bayley. Bayley ended up quickly kicking Becky in her midsection and started punching away at her. Becky Lynch started punching back at Bayley. So both women ended up getting into a little fist fight, and the crowd was really liking that. The crowd was on fire throughout the night tonight. They made a lot of noise. They weren't in a coma. So the crowd was really entertained. So Becky ended up hitting the ropes. She ended up hitting the clothesline. Becky then ended up pinning a running forearm in the corner to Bayley. And then Becky ended up pinning the Beck Exploder to Bayley. Becky ended up grabbing Bayley, and Bayley ended up sending Becky headfirst to the cage wall. Bayley then ended up sending Becky into the cage again, and we had Bayley end up clubbing Becky's back. She ended up throwing Becky onto the metal covering between the two rings. Because, of course, in War Games, you have the two rings, with the cage. And then you have that metal covering between the two rings. So Bayley ended up setting up for a suplex to Becky on the metal covering, but Becky blocked it. Bayley fought back and connected with a suplex on the metal covering to Becky, which of course that had to hurt. So then Shotzi was the one out of the cage. She ended up joining the match. Bayley ended up trying to hold the door shut so Shotzi wouldn't come in, but Shotzi ended up knocking Becky back. Shotzi ended up going under the ring, and she pulled out 4 steel chairs and also a trash can. So the crowd, of course, were chanting, "We want tables." Shotzi then got into the ring, and the crowd ended up booing because they wanted to see a table be in the match. So Bayley ended up charging with a steel chair. Shotzi ended up kicking the chair into Bayley's face. Shotzi then ended up hitting a cross-body block to Bayley, and she ended up following up with a rolling face buster. Shotzi set a chair up in the center of the ring. She ended up pushing the trash can out of the way. She charged and jumped off the chair to hit Bayley with a flying senton. Bayley ended up rolling to the second ring to recover. Shotzi ended up going for a suicide dive between the ropes into the second ring, but Bayley ended up kicking Shotzi down. Becky ended up attacking Bayley with the kendo stick, so she ended up retreating to stand in between the two rings. Shotzi was on the other side with a steel chair. So Bayley got all scared. She was starting to climb the cage, and of course, if Bayley ended up leaving the ring and climbing out of the cage, her whole team will be disqualified from the match. So Becky and Shotzi climbed up after Bayley. They ended up attacking Bayley and bounced her face off the cage wall. So Bayley then fell to the canvas. Becky and Shotzi ended up looking at each other. They stood on the top rope. Both Becky and Shotzi ended up wiping Bayley out with a double team diving shoulder tackle. So at this point, Io Sky ended up joining the match. Io Sky ended up going under the ring. She ended up grabbing a steel chain. Io ended up getting in the ring. She ended up attacking Becky and Shotzi with the chain. Io ended up hooking Shotzi in the chain and threw Shotzi across the ring. Io ended up hooking the chain around Becky and sent Becky into the metal ring apron, but Becky ended up landing on her feet. Becky fought back, but Io ended up snapping her off the top rope. Becky and Shotzi were in the second ring. Io ended up climbing to the top rope. She stepped over to the other ring's top rope, and she ended up hitting both Becky and Shotzi with a double missile dropkick. So Io ended up hitting Shotzi with running double knees in the corner. Io ended up looking at Bayley. She ended up going back to the first ring. So Io ended up giving Bayley the trash can. She climbed to the top rope. Bayley then ended up handing the trash can to Io Sky. Becky ended up getting in the ring and ended up attacking Bayley. So Io ended up getting down, ended up helping Bayley out against Becky Lynch. Becky ended up fighting them off, and she sat on the top rope. But Bayley ended up cutting her off. So we had the crowd ended up chanting for Becky. Bayley and Io ended up taking Becky out with a double team superplex. Io ended up pointing at Shotzi and pulled her into the first ring. They ended up putting Shotzi in the corner, and they ended up attacking her. Bayley ended up punching Shotzi down. So then we had Bianca Belair, Bianca Belair was the captain of the team. Bianca then joined into the match. Bianca ended up using her brace to smack Bayley and Io Sky down, and she ended up preventing them from giving Shotzi a double team superplex. So we had the trash can was wedged in the corner. Bianca ended up giving Io Sky an alley-oop into the trash can. Bayley then ended up swinging a chair at Bianca, but Bianca ended up hitting the chair with her braid. Bianca then pushed Bayley away, ended up hitting Bayley with a spine buster. Bianca ended up giving Io Sky 10 punches, but Bayley then ended up grabbing Bianca's braid. Bayley and Io ended up pulling Bianca's braid, but Bianca ended up backflipping over both Bayley and Io Sky, ended up hitting a double suplex to both Bayley and Io. So Kairi Sane was the next one out of the cage, and she ended up heading to the ring. So Kairi Sane got into the ring. She ended up going underneath, and she ended up pulling out a trash can lid. And the crowd ended up booing at that because they wanted to see a table. So Kairi Sane got into the ring. She ducked the clothesline from Shotzi. Kairi Sane ended up cracking Shotzi with the trash can lid. So Kairi threw the lid to Becky Lynch and took her down. Kairi Sane got in the second ring with Bianca, ended up hitting a head scissor takeover, which was followed up by a drop kick. So we had Io end up scooping Shotzi up, and she delivered a scoop slam to her. Bayley ended up clubbing Becky Lynch down. So Io, Bayley, and Kairi Sane put 3 chairs on top of Shotzi, but they soon end up sliding off. Becky ended up smashing the lid off of Becky. Io then ended up tossing Kairi Sane in the air, who ended up hitting Shotzi with a huge elbow drop on the chairs, which was crazy. So we had Charlotte Flair was the next to join the match. So this was Charlotte's first time being in WarGames. So Charlotte ended up knocking Kairi Sane back. She went and attacked Bayley. Io ended up charging at Charlotte, but Charlotte ended up catching Io and ended up hitting a fallaway slam into Bayley. Charlotte then started chopping away at Kairi Sane. Kairi ended up slipping on a chair. So Charlotte ended up chopping Io Sky down, and she hit Kairi Sane with a fallaway slam into the cage wall. So Io ended up diving at Charlotte. Charlotte caught Io and hit a powerbomb into the cage wall to Io. Bayley and Kairi Sane ended up tackling Charlotte into the other ring. So they ended up sending Charlotte into the corner. She rolled up the turnbuckles, just like, her father, Ric Flair. Charlotte ended up knocking Bayley and Kairi Sane back. She headed to the top rope. She ended up delivering a diving double natural selection to both Bayley and Kairi Sane. So we had later on, Io Sky ended up getting to the top rope, and she dropped the chain down because Io had the steel chain in hand. She knocked Charlotte in the head with it. So Dakota Kai was out there. Dakota Kai hooked another garbage can to the chain, and Io ended up pulling it up to the top of the cage. Io ended up putting the can on top of the cage, and she stood on top of the cage. So Io, this was an awesome spot here in the match. Io put the can over her head, and she dived off the cage onto all the competitors in the ring. It was absolutely awesome. Just an awesome spot there from Io Sky. So next was Asuka. Asuka joined the match, and forgot to mention, when Damage Control came out, when they made their entrance, they were all wearing Asuka's mask. So as Asuka joined the match, WarGames officially began. So Asuka went under the ring. She pulled out 2 kendo sticks, And of course, the crowd was furious because it wasn't a table. Asuka ended up going into the ring. She ended up grabbing 2 more kendo sticks. Asuka pulled out a table, and that got a huge ovation from the crowd. But Asuka and Dakota Kai slid the table into the ring. Asuka also ended up grabbing a fire extinguisher. And she got into the ring, and the bell ended up ringing, and War Games ended up beginning. So we had Damage Control ended up staying in the first ring with kendo sticks, and we had Bianca's team in the other ring. Damage Control ended up getting the second ring and started unloading vicious kendo stick shots on Bianca's team, and the crowd was really into it. So Io ended up grabbing the steel chain, and they ended up binding Becky Lynch and Bianca Belair back to back with the chain. Damage Control then ended up crushing them with stereo drop kicks. So they ended up putting a garbage can over Becky Lynch's head. Asuka climbed to the top rope, but in the first ring, Shotzi ended up climbing up, and she ended up grabbing Asuka. Asuka then ended up spitting the mist in Shotzi's eyes. Asuka then ended up hitting a missile drop kick on Becky, which, of course, Becky had the trash can over her head. So Asuka ended up going for the cover, and Becky ended up kicking out. So Asuka and Kairi Sane ended up grabbing the table. They began to set the table up. So in the second ring, Io ended up hitting her opponents with the kendo stick to keep them down. So Damage Control ended up getting the second ring. They ended up continuing to pick the bones of Bianca's team. Becky ended up fighting back with a forearm to Kairi Sane. Io and Bayley ended up getting Charlotte on the top rope, but Bianca and Becky ended up cutting them off with some power bombs. Charlotte began to head to the top of the cage, to the top of the cage wall. So Charlotte ended up hitting Damage Control with a moonsault block off the top of the cage. So Charlotte delivered her moonsault, which looked fucking awful. What an awful looking moonsault off the top of the cage. So Kairi Sane ended up looking like she caught Charlotte's knee in her face. Charlotte then ended up going to cover Bayley, but Bayley ended up kicking out. Still, if Charlotte goes up to the top of the cage to deliver a moonsault, she does it, it still looks fucking awful. Charlotte needs to learn how to do a good moonsault. So we had Charlotte Flair and Becky Lynch. They took it to Bayley. They ended up pinning Io Sky with a double team vertical suplex. So Kairi Sane ended up running up to them. Both Charlotte and Becky ended up crushing Kairi with the double team powerbomb. Charlotte and Becky ended up celebrating, and they looked at each other. And Charlotte and Becky ended up hugging, which got a big ovation from the crowd. What a moment that was. So Asuka and Io Sky tried to roll both Becky and Charlotte up, but they ended up kicking out. Charlotte applied a figure 4 leg lock to Io and transitioned that into the figure 8. And of course, Io was trying to get to the rope to have Charlotte break up the figure 8, but of course, you don't have submissions in the match here. It's got to win by pinfall. So Kairi Sane ended up going for a diving elbow on Becky, but Becky ended up getting her knees up. Becky ended up applying this armor to Kairi Sane. Bayley ended up quickly breaking up the disarmor with a running knee. Bianca ended up ducking a kick from Asuka and pulled her into the electric chair. Shotzi then ended up hitting Asuka with a missile drop kick and making that into a doomsday device. So Shotzi ended up going for the cover on Asuka, but Bayley ended up breaking up the pin. So at the end of the match, we had Shotzi ended up going to the top rope. She ended up hitting Bayley with a senton splash. Bianca then lifted Bayley up, and she ended up taking out Bayley with the KOD. So they set the table up. Becky was sitting on the top rope. Bianca ended up deadlifting Bayley up the ropes, and Becky ended up hitting her with a manhandle slam off the ropes. So we had Becky end up going for the cover, and there you go. Bianca Belair, Shotzi, Charlotte Flair, and Becky Lynch ended up winning the Women's War Games match. But post-match, Bianca's team, Bianca, her, Shotzi, Charlotte, and Becky end up standing tall, and that was that. But overall, I thought this was a decent Women's War Games match. Even though it had a few botches here and there, I enjoyed it. I like the spot of Io jumping off the top of the cage with the trash can on her, taking out the opponents. Becky and Charlotte end up hugging, which like I said, that got a big ovation from the crowd. Very enjoyable moment that was. But overall, decent Women's War Games match it was. And then we went to the Alpha Academy. They were backstage, and you saw Chelsea Green and Piper Niven. And they were eating Ruffles chips backstage. So, pretty deadly, pretty awful. Elton Prince, Kit Wilson. They showed up. They were arguing with Otis over whether the Ruffles are chips or crisps. So it was just that. It was a chips, crisps. And then R-Truth ended up returning. R-Truth came back, and Truth ended up saying, they are Ruffles. So Akira Tozawa was there. He ended up doing a dance. He was doing a Ruffles dance. Like, Ruffles. And that was that. It was cool to see R-Truth, but this whole thing was fucking terrible. Absolutely awful. Just an advertisement for Ruffles chips. That's all basically it was. Fucking garbage, this was. And then we saw Sami Zayn. Sami Zayn was backstage, and he was with Jey Uso. Main event Jey Uso. Sami Zayn ended up telling Jey that Randy Orton hasn't shown up yet. Jey reminded Sami that they took him out with the injury over a year ago. So we had a chance of CM Punk here during all this with Sami Zayn and Jey Uso. So pretty much that was that. And then we had the Intercontinental Championship on the line. Gunther defended the title against The Miz. And this is Gunther's 533rd day of being Intercontinental Champion. So, Miz's combined 8 reigns, with the Intercontinental Championship is 592 days. So, but this was a good match here. I was really surprised, with how The Miz, wrestled against Gunther tonight. Match ended up getting underway. Miz ended up dancing around Gunther a few times. Both Miz and Gunther locked up. Gunther ended up powering Miz to the corner. Miz ended up getting away. He ended up chopping Gunther, to which Gunther was not happy about that. Gunther then ended up blocking a kick from The Miz, and he chopped Miz down. Gunther ended up grabbing Miz, but Miz booted Gunther away. He then attacked Gunther in the corner and started punching away at him. Gunther ended up shoving Miz away, but Miz ended up coming right back. He ended up slapping Gunther in the face. Miz ended up quickly getting out of the ring when Gunther ended up staring at him. Miz then ended up grabbing Gunther. He was trying to get out of the ring. He ended up snapping Gunther's leg off the apron. Miz then pulled Gunther to the ring post, and he ended up smashing Gunther's left leg off the ring post. Miz then applied the figure 4 around the ring post to Gunther. So Miz had to release that before the count of 5, or else, of course, he would have been disqualified. So because of that, Gunther ended up hobbling in the ring. Miz ended up going to the apron. He ended up doing a springboard, but Gunther ended up big booting Miz out of midair, which was crazy. So Gunther ended up pulling Miz up. He ended up chopping Miz back down. Gunther ended up getting Miz in the corner and started chopping away at him. So Miz was angry. He ended up fighting back at Gunther, but Gunther ended up cutting Miz off with a chop. Gunther then connected with a scoop slam as he shouted at the Miz. Gunther ended up hitting a stiff kick to Miz's spine, started continuing to shout at Miz. Miz fought back with some left hands, but Gunther ended up quickly ducking a left hand, and he ended up connecting with a German suplex to Miz. Gunther ended up clubbing Miz's back and pulled him up to his feet, and he ended up annihilating the Miz with a big boot. So Gunther was sauntering around the ring. Miz started to slowly pull himself up on the ropes. Gunther ended up grabbing Miz and started talking more trash to him. Gunther ended up going for a powerbomb, but Miz ended up punching Gunther, and Miz ended up delivering a hurricanrana to counter, which was great. So Miz ended up kicking Gunther in his injured knee. Miz ended up ducking a chop from Gunther, started punching away at him. Gunther ended up quickly cutting Miz off with a knee to his midsection. Miz ended up blocking a kick from Gunther. He put Gunther's leg on the middle rope, and he jumped on Gunther's injured leg. So Gunther was still hobbling in the center of the ring. Miz ended up kicking away at Gunther's leg and his midsection. He then ended up kicking Gunther high on his chest before kicking him down the corner. So we had Gunther end up fighting back. Miz ended up coming back with a tilt-a-whirl DDT on Gunther. He ended up going for the cover. Gunther ended up kicking out. Miz ended up going for the Skull Crusher finale, but Gunther ended up fighting out of that. Gunther ended up hitting a drop kick, which was followed up by a powerbomb on the Miz. So Gunther ended up going for the cover, and Miz kicked out. Gunther was in disbelief. He became irate that Miz ended up kicking out of that. He started slapping away at Miz. Gunther ended up going for a sleeper hold on the Miz, and he locked it in. But Miz ended up getting to the corner. Gunther ended up ripping Miz away from the corner, but Miz ended up pulling the top turnbuckle pad off. Miz then threw the turnbuckle pad at the ref, and he used that to kick Gunther in his kneecap, followed by giving Gunther a low blow. So Miz then ended up hitting the Skull Crushing finale, and he ended up going for the cover, and Gunther kicked out, and the crowd went irate. They were cheering the hell out of Miz hitting the Skull Crushing finale on Gunther, but only getting a near fall. So the crowd was cheering one more time to the Miz for the Miz to hit the Skull Crushing finale on Gunther. So Miz ended up going for it, but Gunther fought out, and he applied a sleeper hold on the Miz. Miz quickly ended up driving Gunther into the exposed turnbuckle and rolled him up. So Gunther ended up kicking out. Miz ended up trying to fight back at Gunther, but Gunther ended up crushing Miz with a lariat. Gunther headed to the top rope, and he ended up diving with a splash. So, in the end, Gunther ended up applying a Boston Crab. He drove his knee into the Miz's spine, and at that point, Miz had no choice but to tap out. So Gunther ended up winning the match, retaining the Intercontinental Championship. Overall, good match this was. Very physical match between the Miz and Gunther here, and surprising that the Miz took Gunther to a very good match here. But really enjoyed this match. And then we had Finn Balor and Damian Priest. They were talking with JD McDonough about this being JD's first premium live event. So Dominic Mysterio came in. He ended up saying that Randy Orton isn't going to show up tonight. And so they were happy about this. The Judgment Day were happy about this. Priest ended up saying that he'll tell Drew McIntyre. So Balor ended up reminding Priest to tell him about that other thing. And we didn't know what that was. So, but pretty much that was basically that. Judgment Day thinking that Randy Orton wasn't going to show up. But, we'll get to that. And then we had Santos Escobar versus Dragon Lee. Now, you all know, of course, this was supposed to be Santos Escobar versus Carlito. But if you watched SmackDown last night, Santos Escobar ended up taking out Carlito. Santos ended up injuring Carlito's arm. So Carlito had to be taken out. And Dragon Lee volunteered to replace him. But this was a pretty good match here between Escobar and Dragon Lee. So the match got underway. Escobar ended up avoiding a big boot from Dragon Lee. Escobar ended up quickly taking Dragon Lee down with some punches and kicks. He started stomping Dragon Lee down in the corner and kicked him in the head a few times. Escobar ended up pulling Dragon Lee up and sent him into the ropes. Escobar ended up flooring Dragon Lee with a tilt-a-whirl backbreaker. Escobar ended up going for the cover, to which Dragon Lee ended up kicking out. Escobar continued to stomp on Dragon Lee's back. He then put Dragon Lee in the Tree of Woe and started stomping away at him. Escobar backed up. He charged with a drop kick to Dragon Lee, to which he ended up going for the cover, and Dragon Lee kicked out. Escobar started chopping Dragon Lee to the corner, and he had charged with double knees to Dragon Lee's sternum. Escobar ended up dumping Dragon Lee out of the ring, and Escobar followed him out. Escobar then whipped Dragon Lee into the ring steps. He ended up putting Dragon Lee's leg behind the ring steps, which of course is what Santos Escobar also did to Ray's leg to injure, Ray's leg. So Dragon Lee then elbowed Escobar away, ended up kicking Escobar in the face from the apron. Escobar slowly pulled himself up to the apron, and Dragon Lee ended up hitting a nice looking hurricanrana off the apron to the floor. Dragon Lee then got back in the ring, and he ended up hitting a nice somersault senton on Escobar. Pretty cool. So Dragon Lee got Escobar back into the ring. Dragon Lee sized Escobar up for a running knee to the side of his head. So Dragon Lee ended up going for the cover, and Escobar ended up kicking out. Dragon Lee pulled Escobar up and started punching him. Lee ended up putting Escobar on his shoulders and slammed him down. Dragon Lee went to the top rope, but Escobar cut him off. Dragon Lee ended up kicking Escobar away, and he ended up going to the top rope. Escobar tried to climb after Dragon Lee, but Dragon Lee knocked Escobar away. Escobar then knocked Dragon Lee down with a kick to his temple, but Escobar pulled Lee back up to the top rope, and Escobar delivered a massive hurricanrana to Dragon Lee, which was great. So Escobar went for the cover, and Dragon Lee ended up kicking out. Escobar was arguing about the count. So Escobar started stomping on Dragon Lee's shoulder, and he ended up trying to rip Dragon Lee's mask off. So Escobar hit a snapmare, and he continued to rip away at Dragon Lee's mask. So Escobar sneered at the crowd because the crowd were chanting asshole to Escobar. So Escobar put Dragon Lee on the apron. So Escobar ended up pulling Lee to the top rope. Lee started punching Escobar down and got him in the Tree of Woe. Dragon Lee then crushed Escobar with a double stomp. He ended up going for the cover. to which Escobar ended up kicking out. Dragon Lee sized Escobar up and charged at him, but Escobar super kicked Dragon Lee down, turning Dragon Lee inside out. So at the end of the match, Escobar connected with a South of the Border Destroyer to Dragon Lee, and then he followed up with a Phantom Driver on Dragon Lee. He ended up going for the cover, and there you go. Escobar ended up winning the match. But overall, good match this was between Santos Escobar and Dragon Lee. Good effort from both of these guys, and we're going to get that match at some point, with Escobar and Carlito. It should be a good match there between the both of them. But Santos Escobar, he's doing a fantastic job, being a heel. And then we had, LA Knight. This was, a little commercial where Knight was promoting Slim Jim. So then the New Day ended up driving into the arena in the Slim Jim car. And as they were driving into the arena, they were honking, New Day rocks. So Xavier Woods and Kofi Kingston got out of the Slim Jim car, and they were just promoting Slim Jim. So that was basically that. So earlier we had Ruffles being advertised, and now at this point in the show, Slim Jim. And then we had the Women's World Championship on the line. Rhea Ripley defending the title against Zoey Stark. And the match was okay, in my opinion. So, as the bell ended up ringing, Zoey Stark and Rhea Ripley, they were trash-talking each other. Rhea Ripley ended up slapping Zoey Stark in the face. So Zoey Stark ended up slapping Rhea Ripley back. Rhea Ripley ended up charging at Zoey Stark, but Zoey Stark ended up taking Rhea Ripley down, started punching away at her. So the crowd was very mixed at Rhea Ripley and Zoey Stark. The crowd was cheering more for Rhea Ripley, and they were booing Zoey Stark. So Zoey Stark ended up drop kicking Rhea Ripley out of the ring. She ended up crushing her with a crossbody block off the top rope to the floor. Stark got Ripley back into the ring, and Stark ended up hitting a springboard missile drop kick to Ripley. She ended up going for the cover, and Ripley ended up kicking out. Stark ended up charging at Rhea Ripley in the corner, but Rhea Ripley ended up dropping Stark on the apron. Zoey Stark ended up knocking Rhea Ripley back. She ended up going for a slingshot, but Rhea Ripley headbutted Stark in the jaw. Rhea Ripley got on the apron, and of course, we had mommy chants picking up from the crowd. They were all for Rhea Ripley. So Rhea ended up going for a suplex on the apron, but Zoey Stark ended up fighting out of it. Zoey Stark then ended up turning Rhea Ripley inside out with a DDT on the apron. She then pushed Rhea Ripley into the ring, ended up hitting a slingshot corkscrew senton. She ended up going for the cover, and Rhea Ripley ended up kicking out. Rhea Ripley quickly rolled out of the ring to recover. Stark ended up going to the apron, and she kicked Rhea Ripley in her chest. Rhea then avoided a diving knee and ducked a kick from Zoey Stark. She then lifted Zoey Stark and dropped her on the apron face first. And then Rhea ended up sending Zoey Stark into the ring post. So we had Rhea Ripley ended up throwing Zoey Stark into the ring. She started punching away at Stark. Rhea Ripley ended up shouting at Zoey Stark that this is her division and that Stark is nothing. So Rhea then powered Stark up for a nice vertical suplex. She ended up going for the cover, to which Stark ended up kicking out. So Rhea Ripley ended up kneeing away at Zoey Stark's ribs and ended up clubbing her in her spine. Rhea then ended up digging her knee into Stark's spine and pulled back on her arms for a surfboard stretch. Stark ended up trying to fight up, but Rhea ended up slinging Stark down and pulled back on her arms for a curb stomp. So we had Rhea Ripley end up drop kicking Stark. So Stark ended up fighting back. She had pinned a jawbreaker, but Rhea cut her off. Rhea then put Stark on the top rope. She had punching and chopping away at her. Rhea then climbed to the second rope, so Stark ended up fighting back, but Rhea ended up cutting her off. Rhea ended up going for a slam, and it looked like they were going to do something, but Stark, I think, was supposed to land on her feet, but Stark didn't stick to, her landing at all. So then Stark rolled Rhea Ripley up for a 2 count. So Rhea ended up elbowing out of a German suplex attempt from Stark, and she ended up stunning Stark with a kick to her skull. Rhea then slammed Stark down on her face and connected with a Northern Light suplex, to which Stark ended up kicking out. So we had Rhea Ripley end up going for the riptide, but Stark ended up sliding out. She delivered a German suplex to Ripley. Stark then connected with a run knee to Ripley. She ended up going for the cover, but Rhea ended up kicking out. Stark was going for the Z360, which got blocked by Rhea. So Rhea ended up elbowing Stark. Stark ended up hitting a kick, and we had Rhea Ripley end up stunning Stark with a headbutt. Rhea then followed up with the riptide on Stark. So she ended up going for the cover, and there you go. Rhea Ripley ended up winning the match, retaining the Women's World Championship. But overall, the match was okay, and it was obvious that Rhea Ripley was going to retain the title. I mean, the WWE is going to give Rhea Ripley a long reign, as she continues to be the Women's World Champion. Rhea Ripley is not losing that title anytime soon. So then we saw Seth Rollins. Jey Uso and Sami Zayn walked into Rollins' locker room. And they ended up saying that Randy Orton hasn't shown up yet. Cody Rhodes then walked in. Cody Rhodes was confident that Randy Orton will show up. To which Cody ended up asking Rollins, Jey, and Sami to trust in him. So that was that. Main event. The men's WarGames match. Drew McIntyre and the Judgment Day. Balor, Damian Priest, and Dominic Mysterio and JD McDonough versus Cody Rhodes, Jey Uso, Sami Zayn, Seth Rollins, and if Randy Orton showed up. But this was an awesome main event for, men's WarGames. So it started off with Balor and Seth Rollins. Damian Priest, Dominic, JD McDonough, Cody Rhodes, Jey Uso, Sami Zayn were in their cages. So Rollins got into the ring. He hit the ropes. He ended up diving into the second ring to attack Balor. Rollins started punching away at Balor. Balor cut Rollins off. He ended up going to send Rollins into the cage wall, but Rollins cut Balor off. Rollins then ended up sending Balor twice into the cage wall. We had a chant of CM Punk ring out from the crowd. Rollins then ended up driving Balor into the cage wall again. And of course, the crowd was going, whoa. Of course, singing along to his theme song. And of course, we had, whoa, from Cody Rhodes when his music ended up hitting. So Balor then rolled to the first ring. Rollins then followed Balor into the first ring. Balor ended up begging Rollins off. He ended up going for a cheap shot, but Rollins blocked it. Rollins ended up going for a Beckel bomb, but Balor ended up getting out and clotheslined Rollins down. Balor then grabbed Rollins and drove him headfirst into the cage wall. Balor then grabbed Rollins again, and of course, driving him headfirst into the cage wall. Balor then ended up chopping at Rollins' chest. So Balor ended up sending Rollins into the cage wall, ended up hitting a sling blade. Balor then sized Rollins up. Balor then ended up charging, but Rollins ended up kicking Balor down. So both of them were in between the two rings on the metal plated. Rollins ended up going for the pedigree to Balor, but Balor ended up delivering a back body drop to Rollins on the metal plating. Of course, Rollins went back first onto the plate, which we all know of Rollins' back problems. So Balor ended up going to the top for the coup de grace, but Rollins moved out of the way. Rollins then ended up hitting a sling blade to Balor. He got to his feet. Rollins started punching Balor down in the corner. He ended up whipping Balor into the corner and avalanched him. And then he pinned a back suplex, which he then hit a backbreaker to Balor. So Rollins then connected with a run knee to Balor's face. So at this point, JD McDonough joined into the match. He got into the ring. Rollins ended up kicking him right out of the cage. Barely JD McDonough got into the cage, and Rollins kicked him right out. So Balor ended up attacking Rollins, but Rollins ended up whipping Balor hard into the opposite corner. Rollins then grabbed McDonough, but McDonough had a kendo stick in his hand. And McDonough ended up hitting Rollins with the kendo stick. McDonough then brought 2 kendo sticks into the ring. He gave one of them to Balor. So McDonough and Balor ended up hitting kendo stick shots to Rollins. Balor then started choking Rollins with the kendo stick. McDonough then swung at Rollins, but Rollins blocked it. Rollins ended up sending McDonough into the metal plate between the 2 rings, and he elbowed Balor back. McDonough then quickly attacked Rollins and springboarded off the middle rope off the second ring, and he moonsaulted into the first ring on Rollins. Balor and McDonough ended up grabbing Rollins and took him down with a kendo stick. McDonough then hung Rollins on the top rope. Balor came off the second rope with a kendo stick shot to Rollins' spine. So Balor then ended up digging the kendo stick into Rollins' face. Balor and McDonough ended up hitting a double team straightjacket suplex to Rollins. So then Jey Uso joined into the match. And of course, the Yeet chants end up ringing in from the crowd. Everybody was doing the Jey Uso. So Jey looked into the ring. He saw Balor and McDonough holding chairs. Jey then grabbed a chair from ringside. He got into the ring to take both Balor and McDonough down. Jey started punching away at McDonough and took him down. Jey then ended up going off on Balor with some punches. Jey then connected with Insiguri's on both McDonough and Balor. He then ended up hitting Balor with a running hip attack. Jey then charged at McDonough, but McDonough took Jey down with a Spanish fly. So Rollins ended up putting Jey out of a double team suplex. Rollins ended up going after Balor. So Jey started concentrating on McDonough. Rollins started punching away at Balor until he escaped to the second ring. Rollins then stepped over from the top rope in the first ring to the top rope in the second ring and delivered a diving axe handle. So at this point, Drew McIntyre got out of the cage. Damian Priest ended up holding him back. He ended up telling him to stick to the plan. So Damian Priest headed toward the ring. Priest cautiously got into the ring. Rollins and Jey ended up ambushing him. Priest ended up fighting both Rollins and Jey off. Rollins ended up hitting him in the ribs with the steel chair. Balor and McDonough ended up joining in to help. So Priest pulled out a metal baton and he viciously attacked Rollins and Jey with the baton. Priest then avalanched Rollins and Jey. He then flattened Jey with a broken arrow. And so Priest then ended up hitting Rollins with a flatliner. Priest went to the top rope. Balor and McDonough held Rollins and Jey up. Priest then ended up flattening both Jey and Rollins with a twist and senton. So Priest started punching Rollins. Rollins ended up rolling to the second ring. Priest started punching and stomping away at Rollins. So at this point, Sami Zayn shook hands with Cody Rhodes. Sami Zayn made his way to the ring out of the cage. So Sami Zayn ended up hitting McDonough in the head with the kendo stick. He ended up slamming the door into Balor's face. Sami Zayn ended up thinking about going under the ring for a table. And so Sami Zayn grabbed the table and the crowd absolutely roared at that. So we had a Usi chant picking up. Priest ended up punching Jay down, and Sami Zayn ended up clotheslining Priest over the top rope to the metal plate. Priest ended up nearly landing on his head. Sami Zayn started stomping away at Priest in between the rings. Sami Zayn ended up getting back in the first ring and attacked Balor before hitting a Blue Thunder Bomb. So we had McDonough end up grabbing Sami Zayn. Sami Zayn ended up smashing McDonough off the cage wall. McDonough ended up landing crotch first on the top rope, and he fell to the canvas. Sami Zayn then pulled the pipe off the cage, and Sami Zayn hit McDonough with the pipe. So Balor ended up charging, but Sami Zayn hit Balor also with the pipe. Priest ended up going after Sami Zayn, but Sami Zayn springboarded over Priest and smashed Priest in the face also with the pipe. So Sami Zayn started punching Balor down in the corner. Sami ended up digging his boots into Balor's face. He then started punching McDonough. Sami Zayn and Rollins ended up taking turns punching away at McDonough. Rollins then chopped Balor's chest. Sami Zayn ended up hitting Balor with the kendo stick, and Rollins set a chair up and he bounced Balor off of the chair. Sami Zayn then tossed the kendo stick to Jay, who was in the second ring. So that now at this point, Drew McIntyre joined into the match. McIntyre ended up slamming Rollins down. He ended up attacking Sami Zayn in the corner. McIntyre ended up hitting Sami Zayn with a overhead belly-to-belly suplex, which looked wild. So McIntyre ended up grabbing Rollins and ended up giving him an inverted Alabama slam onto Sami Zayn. So McIntyre ended up slowly getting in the ring. He stared at Jey Uso. Jay started punching away at McIntyre and uppercutted him. So McIntyre ended up quickly coming back with a neck breaker, and he ended up kipping up. So McIntyre ended up telling Jay to apologize and acknowledge what he has done. So McIntyre ended up slamming Jay into the cage wall. McIntyre then scooped Jay up and lawn darted him into the cage wall. McDonough started stomping and punching Sami Zayn down. McIntyre ended up going for a Claymore kick on Jay, but Jay super kicked McIntyre. Jay and Sami ended up hitting McIntyre with the 1D, and then Balor and Priest quickly end up attacking Sami. So at this point, Cody Rhodes entered the match. Now, of course, WarGames was created by, of course, his father, the late, great Dusty Rhodes, the American Dream. Cody got into the ring. He viciously attacked Damian Priest. Cody started punching Balor in between the ring. Cody started punching away at McDonough in the second ring and delivered a clothesline. McDonough then reversed the whip into the corner, but Cody ended up getting out, and he ended up hitting McDonough with a back body drop. Cody then ended up attacking Balor. He ended up giving him a front suplex onto McDonough. So Cody then dragged a bull rope into the ring. So of course, this is, Dusty, his preferred weapons to use in WarGames was the bull rope. Rollins then grabbed the other end. And so Rollins and Cody got into a tug of war with the bull rope. So they then worked together. They end up attacking McDonough. They end up hitting Balor with the bull rope. And they end up crotching Balor with the bull rope. So Cody started punching Priest in the first ring. At this point, Dominic Mysterio ended up entering. So Dominic got into the ring, and he ended up attacking Rollins, Balor, Sami Zayn, and Cody. Dominic got in the first ring, ended up hitting Cody with the two amigos. And so he was going for the third amigo. He ended up stopping when he saw Sami Zayn, Rollins, and Jay surrounding him. So all four men viciously beat Dominic down, and Cody started punching Dominic in the second ring. Rollins put Balor in the corner. Sami Zayn and Rollins end up leading the table in the corner. Cody sent Dominic into the cage wall. Rollins set up for a powerbomb through the table in the corner, but we had the Judgment Day end up saving Dominic. So McIntyre, Priest end up hitting Rollins, Rhodes, and Sami Zayn with choke slams. So McDonough then ended up crushing Sami Zayn with a moonsault off the top rope. Battle then followed up with a coup de grace on Rollins. Dominic then ended up hitting Cody with the frog splash. So the Judgment Day ended up setting the table upright in the corner. Priest then ended up giving Rollins the razor's edge through the table as the Judgment Day stood tall. So then the clock counted down. And at this point, did we get Randy Orton? No. We had Rhea Ripley. Rhea Ripley ran down with a ref and, Damian Priest's Money in the Bank briefcase, thinking that, Damian Priest was going to cash in his briefcase on Rollins. But no, the cash-in didn't happen. We heard, I hear voices in my head, they come to me. Randy Orton came out. Randy Orton made his return after more than a year, and the crowd gave him an awesome ovation. Orton got into the ring, he closed the door, and War Games officially started. So Orton then clotheslined Dominic twice, and he ended up hitting a snap power slam to Dominic. And Orton showed no signs of ring rust here. So Orton then ended up delivering a snap power slam to McDonough. So Orton was moving around great here. Very awesome, after coming off of him having double fusion back surgery. So Orton ended up sending Dominic and McDonough into the cage wall. Orton ended up hooking Balor's head, ended up giving him a hanging DDT. So McIntyre ended up staring at Orton from the second rope. McIntyre got into the first ring. He stared down Orton. Priest then ended up attacking Orton from behind as the Judgment Day started beating Orton down in the corner. Cody, Jay, Rollins, and Sami Zayn ended up cutting the Judgment Day off. And so Judgment Day was in between the two rings. Cody, Sami Zayn, Rollins, Jay, and Orton ended up hitting DDTs on the Judgment Day, hanging DDTs on the Judgment Day. Orton then ended up dropping down for RKO, but then he turned toward Jay to let Jay know that he hasn't forgotten what Jay did to him. So Jay then super kicked Priest, and then Orton ended up giving Dominic an RKO. Rollins ended up giving Priest a stomp on the metal plate. Cody ended up hitting Balor with the Cody cutter, and Sami Zayn ended up hitting McIntyre with the Cody kick. Jay leapt off the top rope from the first ring into the second ring. He delivered a Uso splash onto McIntyre. So McDonough was the last man standing. McDonough tried to scale the cage wall, but of course, if McDonough escaped the cage, he would forfeit the match for the Judgment Day. So Sami Zayn and Rollins followed McDonough to the top of the cage, and they ended up attacking him. Orton looked up at McDonough on top of the cage. He was ready to hit the RKO on McDonough. So Rollins and Sami Zayn pushed McDonough off the top of the cage, and Orton hit the RKO on McDonough. So Orton ended up sending Priest into Cody. Cody ended up hitting Priest with the Crossroads. So he went for the cover, and there you go. Cody Rhodes, Jey Uso, Sami Zayn, Seth Rollins, and Randy Orton ended up winning the match. So the show start to end, we had the trademark on the right side of the screen. And lo and behold, CM Punk ended up coming out. CM Punk made his way out to the stage, his return to WWE. The crowd ended up driving the roof off of the Allstate Arena with a humongous ovation for Punk. And so Punk just went out there, looked at the crowd. He was high-fiving fans. And that was how Survivor Series went off the air. But overall, this was an awesome men's War Games match. Randy Orton making his return was great. He looked good. No signs of ring rust on Orton. You know, like I said, after coming off his double fusion back surgery. And just CM Punk, you know, coming back to WWE. I mean, we were all taking guesses that, you know, he was going to come back after he got fired from AEW. You know, after all the drama that went on. But it is good to see CM Punk back in WWE. And let's see where this goes for Punk. But really, I'm happy. But overall, Survivor Series was a decent show, in my opinion. But anyways, that's it for my review of Survivor Series War Games. Thank you all for watching. Hope you all enjoyed this review. Definitely give the video a thumbs up, comment, subscribe, and until next video, I'll see you all later.